Hey, one and all, I'm back and going to be covering a really cool mini-series that a lot of people may have forgotten about or they may not even know exists because this is 1988. So, dear God, I don't want to think back. I don't want to do the math on the years because I was already an adult driving cars and allowed to buy beer. And it's like, no, I'm going to pretend I'm 30 forever. Yes. So, Jim Starlin, Mike Mignola, you can't go wrong with that at all. Inked by Carlos Garzon, who inked the legendary Al Williamson on the comic book adaptations of Empire Strikes Back, as well as Return of the Jedi and Blade Runner, which was a really cool adaptation. I mean, Al Williamson, it's just amazing. So, Jim Starlin, he was a DC guy through most of the 80s, or at least the second half of the 80s. He did Dreadstar for quite a while for Marvel, and then they let the contract lapse, and he went over to First Comics. So he did that for a while, and then he passed the baton to Peter David and Angel Medina, because as cool as some creator-owned books are, back then it was a little more of a gamble. So he kind of kept the book going, but he needed to make some money. You couldn't. I mean, it wasn't like Image and Post-Image where there's a potential to make a fortune. So Jim Starlin, he was very much a DC guy at this time. He did The Cult, which was drawn by the legendary Bernie Wrightson. He did The Weird, which I don't really know. It's like a JLA kind of miniseries. And then he also did Death in the Family with Mignola covers and art on the inside by legendary artist Jim Aparo. So this is like the fourth thing he's done in like 2 years, in a 2 year period. So he was really prolific. And then a year after that was Infinity Gauntlet, and then he was off to the races. He did do some creator-owned stuff with Malibu and stuff like that here and there, but he came back to Marvel with a vengeance. So, what I always like about Mike Mignola stuff, and this is silly, but I like how the legs always sort of dangle. It's almost like you see strings that are dangling these figures, like puppeteers or like puppets. And but it's a great look. It is a great look, and it helped me understand the Fourth World a little better, because I only knew Darkseid from Legion of Superheroes, and that was in the 30th century. I had read some. I'll be honest, I wasn't into the New Gods yet. I was just very snobbish about it, and now I have all four omnibus volumes, and I've read them in order. Great, great, great stuff. I think my problem was it was way before my time, in a sense. I wasn't reading comics till several years after Kirby's DC stuff had ended, and I saw him on Captain America, Black Panther, and everything else. And so what's my point? So I barely had exposure to Darkseid at the time, because the New God stuff I bought, the collections were 10 years ago. And but as time grew on, this was my gateway to, or my boom tube to the Fourth World. So Steve Oliff, one of the greatest colors. I really got a kick out of him. He started doing the Hulk magazine when I think Doug Minch was writing it, and then Ron Wilson was drawing it. Now, the first couple issues of Ron Wilson's Hulk, issue 10, 11 or so, and I think 13 were really, really sharp. I mean, really, really good looking stuff. And Steve Oliff brought on that airbrush color. I can't imagine how long it would take to color a page with airbrush, because that's what you did back then. And I took airbrush when I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and I did okay with it. There's a 3-color method. Actually, you could use any of the 3 primary colors, red, blue, yellow, and get any color out of them. And what I did with the airbrush, I know you're saying, what about the comic book here? But I'll get to the point. With the airbrush, excuse me, I I was able to do to duplicate an ad where there was a ladle pouring chocolate into a container, and I use those three colors. I didn't look for a brown color. It's like you lightly add a little more color here and there, like three colors in order. It doesn't have to be that order. And then you build on it, and then you kind of sort of see things taking shape, and then eventually it looked like chocolate. It blew my little mind. So Steve Oliff was really I would say, gosh, he was the trailblazer for coloring when it came to mainstream comics. So I bought this because it looked pretty. Book One Discovery. The logo's great. And you know what? I'll be honest. Mike Mignola's Hellboy and such is great. I sort of like his early stuff better. I know people are going to throw tomatoes at me, but later on he kind of did a lot of real hard images. It was like black or it wasn't white, and there wasn't much gray stuff. And I do like that because I got into the business about the time that Brian Stofries and Dave Johnson, all these other people were doing that high contrast stuff. But I think, like, I had shown, I can't remember if I showed this or not, but there was a Triumph and Torment graphic novel with Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, and it was Mike Mignola, inked by Mark Badger, and it looks so great because Mark Badger is a fantastic artist in his own right. So it kind of made a nice stew. So, and you know what? I'm an inker. I like to participate if I can. I like to add nuance when I'm able to. So that's part of my hang-up. But here come the Boom Tube. All hail Asgard. Asgard. Darkseid. There you go. Got these cuddly stormtroopers. Oh, that's so beautiful. I like how Superman's all in black. And I don't know if it was intended to be in contrast to Light Ray, who was a white suit. So, go on. A little bit of spittle there. So, dog soldiers. Just lovely, lovely line work. And I get to the Boom Tube. How about that? That's so. If I were to tell you years ago, or during the Hellboy years, currently, if somebody could pick that out, it would take a little bit of a minute to figure that out. So what I got left behind? I have no other box to summon a Boom Tube to get back to Apocalypse. How will I survive? Oh, great Darkseid, have mercy on me. That's a really majestic looking Metron. And I love that shape. One thing also, going back to the Keith Giffen Legion of Superheroes, the Great Light and Darkness saga, I did like it, but boy, Keith really made a skinny looking Darkseid. I mean, he's always supposed to be just broad, like, I don't know what like a wrestler, on steroids. I don't know what I'm not saying any of them use, I'm just saying it sounds silly to say that. But I don't know if these characters have ever been done before. I love those costumes. I really don't think they are. They're numbered. There's 1, there's 3, there's 5, and there's 10. Classic. That's something Byrne did with The Thing as well. So, yep. I love that design. Meanwhile, Gotham City, there's been quite a few deaths. Joe Bester is the 10th person to vanish in the area in over 6 months. I wonder if he meant to say like Joe Besser, which was the later incarnation of Curly in the Three Stooges. He just couldn't resist. I don't know. Maybe just he thought it. He thunk it up. The coloring. Oh my gosh. Look at the coloring on those faces in the middle there. Lovely. as what's her name said. I'm really good with names today. Holly Golightly. I like the line work. I'm digging the line work. So he's like, oh. There's one lone parademon left behind. Look at that. Look at all that. Nothing but air. And he's like, look at the size of those impressions. My prey must be a giant. That way. It's not at all what I expected. A jury-rigged chair confirms my suspicion about my adversary's size. The radio set gives a new perspective on my unknown foe. It's most definitely extraterrestrial in design. And look what he did. He took like two chairs together, like in a car, and he used them to... I find nothing to account for the putrid smell that permeates these surroundings. Oh my God. Whew. I feel my stomach began to go, and I have to rush from that chamber of horror. Now I know who I face, a cannibalistic alien. I love that. That's the stuff Mignola still uses a lot, like with the eyes. Really cool stuff. And there he is, and wow. That is so spectacular how he blacks out Batman, because I tell myself to stay out of sight and return later with backup. That's the only sensible thing to do. But in my mind's eye, it flashes on those bodies hanging from the hooks like slabs of beef. And they get into it. And it's one of those like comic book conceits where Batman probably should have died during this fight because he's taking a lot of hits. I mean, he's dodging a bunch, but he's taking a lot. So he says, I normally don't like using weapons, especially firearms. But I'm flexible, able to adapt to the situation. Drop it. And he gets a kablooey for that. Dark side, dark side. Single S word that speaks volumes. Boy, is that beautiful. The bow and the lips are always cool. Like, not a lot of artists can do that. That's something I love that Ian Gibson, who he's a British artist who's done tons of stuff for like the 2000 AD books. Kevin Maguire does it really well. And Wally Wood did that really well too. He got a little tiny bow on that, and that's not an easy feat if you have a smaller face. But he would do that on Daredevil and all kinds of, and his own creator-owned stuff, or not creator-owned, just his own stuff. Unfortunately, he didn't own. So here we go. They're going to assemble people that going out to space, the space-oriented type characters. John Jones, Martian Manhunter, Starfire from the new Teen Titans, the ever-personable Batman. John Stewart, formerly of the Green Lantern Corps, and lastly, an old man with an unusual name of Mr. Blood. Now, if you've done your homework, you know who that is. And this is, I can't think of his name. I don't even know if Kirby came up with him, or if that was like a later thing that Jerry Conway came up with Don Newton. So, Lonar, that's his name. Maybe I'm wrong. How about that, baby? I'm just focusing on the spread for a minute. Classic. It's always interesting when somebody goes to New Genesis and it's a new artist and they really have to up their game to make, here's New Genesis, seem fresh rather than just, copying stuff. Dark Side. Picayune. Love that. Look at the browns, the earth tones. I'm going to skip over some of this because here's my hang up. Okay, if you don't want a spoiler about the anti-life equation, Then cover your ears or turn off the sound for about half a minute, okay? Okay, starting 1, 2, 3. Okay, you're warned. Well, they find out the anti-life equation is it's not an intellectual or philosophical content. It is anti-life is a sentient being, intelligent and aware of its own existence. Now, I had real problems with this at the time, and I don't know if this has been resolved since, but I found it interesting, but it was also off-putting because it sort of like slammed the door on the mystery of it. But the story is still great. It's still great, and you can't get enough of Darkseid. Kirby did the New Gods, and it didn't sell as great as it could have, but he gave us Darkseid. And Darkseid, let's face it, he is the baddest badass in the DC universe. Kirby gave us, had he not even given us New Gods, if he gave us Darkseid, that'd have been an accomplishment enough. So when you get different teams, you got Orion and Superman, you have Light Ray and Starfire, you have John Jones and Green Lantern, John Stewart. You have Bug, one of the underground critters from New Gods, and Batman. I love that because they're pretty much matched. Like these two are street level or under the street level. So back when they have phone booths. But there's Etrigan, and the thing is, I'm not spoiling this because it's on the cover of issue 3. So, damn, that's good looking stuff. So. Hang on a second, would you please? These dang blasted sinuses are just making me cuckoo. And it used to be just during certain parts of the year, and now it's all year long. Whoopee! So we got Book 2, Disaster. Man, that's a beautiful cover. Let's get a little closer to that. And, kudos to anybody who draws that sky sled of his. And it's funny because he takes that off, and his costume, aside from the helmet, is the most boring thing to look at. But I'm sure some people could fake it. But I look at that face on Superman. I don't know, that may be watercolors. It looks more like watercolors now when I think about it. Here he goes. SWAT. That's really cool. I'm not going to read too much because, there we go. There's Bug. There's the Giant Penny. There is the Batcave. So, if we're going to work together, we'll have to make some changes. What do you mean? I do my best work at night. That red and white costume has got to go. No problem, but how are we going to find the anti-life aspect? A computer? Died? Love that, Starfire. And I just love how they're your legs sometimes dangle when you're flying. I love those outlines. Like, yeah. Okay. Looks kind of like a stripper. But not that I know. There is Etrigan. And look at that piece of machinery. Dear sweet baby God. This is great. And Darkseid wants this old man, Jason Blood, to turn back into Etrigan. And he doesn't want to do it. But Etrigan is also suffering. It's kind of similar to when John Byrne separated the Hulk from Bruce Banner. They both started getting weaker because they needed each other. He's like, very well, I'll do it. He's like, okay, it's a different cover. Just a similar feel to it. I like that tornado. Very simple. lightning zaps the crap out of him. That's really good there. I love that the posture. So there we go. There's our new improved bug, and it looks badass. Oh my gosh, that's cool. I don't know if they kept it or not. That's pretty neat too. This would be like a neat background on your computer. You know, just block out this. There it is. The Doomsday Bomb. Wow. Good gosh. Wonderful stuff. I'm jumping ahead because I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil the party, so go. Etrigan the Demon lives again. I would say by far Etrigan is my favorite Kirby DC character. Maybe above or tied with Darkseid. It's just a great comic. And also Starlin continues the Alan Moore demon dialogue of rhyming. And that's really cool. That's fun to do. Okay. There we go. Yeah, man. Don't F with us. There it is. That Gizmo again. Wisely, Starlin kept it the same angle. It's kind of like the Helicarrier for so many years. So many artists just copied Kirby's version of it because they couldn't figure out how to exactly do it at an angle similar to Galactus's ship. I mean, it was sort of like an MC Escher type image. Wow. So Orion's bitching and moaning about like, let's go in, and and Superman is the voice of reason. I love that. Have I said I love that about 22,000 times? How about that? Wow, holy smoke, he's a big one. Love the legs. Look at those big old cloppy feet. And that little area there is so cool. They should have made a toy of it. But I don't know if it was that popular. Slurp. Always love to see Superman tussling with a robot. He throws it and the arm pops off. That's a cool one. Time to say goodnight, Gracie. Rumph. And, oh. Can't be. Trying to see what I can. Etrigan's so cool. Okay, let's do it, baby. He doesn't say baby though. Not since a day in Crime Alley. Okay. I'll have a quote on the back. I don't want to blow it because one of them blows a big plot point. Here we go. Cosmic Odyssey number 4. Yes, 4. Thank you, Motherbox, for reminding me. Jump ahead. Bug actually slices this guy's head off with his shield, and that's because he's possessed. There's no redemption, and it was basically a cop who had died and then been turned into the undead. So the hence the head chopping. Batman explains the damages to his body so vividly. Somehow I retain my fragile grip on consciousness, but it does me a little good. I'm like a babe in a giant's hands, helpless, because my tibia and fibula fracture under the brutal impact. It goes on and on and on and on about that. And I'm like, well, how does he ever recover from this? monster taking out the bug. And Dr. Fate the Mystic. Dr. Fate's always been a mixed bag with me. I love his costume, but he needs to have some sort of ground rules on like how he's just too friggin' powerful. And that's been the thing that's bothered me the most about him. There should be some kind of weakness, and I don't mean just like your basic weakness, like a color or a piece of wood or something like that. There should be something like where maybe Dr. Fate, maybe it demands, maybe it's Dr. Fate is using his human self as a host body, and it starts to get, ill and whatnot. So, especially whatnot. You can't downgrade whatnots like that. Woohoo! Boy, oh boy, I'd love to make that. Again, the color palette's so great. See, I gotta look past this. So, and this last book was called Death, of this chapter. It's funny though, because death, I don't know if Starlin has the word death like automatically cued into his typewriter where he just has to write D or something, because ever since the 70s he's been obsessed with death. I know he served in the Army or the Navy or something during the Vietnam conflict, which was a disaster. And ever since, gosh, I might have been, I think his early written stuff, Captain Marvel, he was obsessed with death, and he did that certainly with Adam Warlock. And then the death of Captain Marvel had him die of cancer. And then Thanos was in love with the embodiment of death, and it was unrequited. And although I don't know how death would reciprocate other than killing him as well, but as years gone on, the personification of death would show up, and it was a woman with a veil, and you take the veil off, and it was a skull. But so this is a really great book, and you know what? I got each of these for $2 each in the at Dave's Comics, and found it by accident. I bought the first one, trying to remember if it was as good as I remembered, because back then I sold my collection like a numbnut, and then later on I started buying new comics, and then I would buy like a first issue to kind of test it, and then it might have been too pricey for me at the time. It was $3.50, and regular comics were, I don't know if they were $75 or $1. But yeah, it not only holds up, but it's much better than I remembered, and especially reading all 4 in a row. So is there a trade paperback in this? I don't know. So hey, thanks for spending time with me, and I'll be back, and I wish you well. Take it easy, everybody.